Welcome to our webinar today. Today's webinar is for servicers and their attorneys, the default attorneys. Hopefully by the time we're done today, you will feel comfortable using the DMM portal. Now I know that everyone that's attending today already has or should have an account on the DMM portal because the email invites that are sent out to everyone, we pull that from our list of users. So I'm going to assume that everyone in here already has an account, but because typically at all the different servicing companies, there's going to be more than one person per company using the portal. We will talk about how your portal admin can set up your company so that you can have multiple users. And we'll show you how to configure that. And also we'll show you how to assign specific users to accounts so that, you know, if you have people that are at your servicing company that are working with maybe one borrower but not with another, they can be assigned specifically just to the accounts that they work with. So I'd like to get an idea as well. Now this doesn't really apply to the default attorneys that are attending, but for the servicers, if you are a portal admin, go ahead and click the raise hand button again so I can see how many portal admins we have in here. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, good. Even if you're not a portal admin, we will cover topics that will apply only to portal admins. But even if you're not a portal admin, that's okay, because if you're attending the webinar and they are not, you'll be able to take back some valuable information to them, such as, you know, how to set up other users and do some configuring. But we'll get to all of that. First of all, I guess we should start with the very most basic thing, which is our website address. And even if you look up in our URL here, you'll see this dclmwp.com. This is our actual web address. But to make things easier, we've also registered as a domain www.dmmportal.com, which is obviously a lot easier to remember. So you do not have to remember that crazy set of letters up there. All you have to do is go to dmmportal.com, and that will automatically forward you to our site here. And once you hit the home page, you'll see a few things here. We have our login, and we also have the forgot password. So at any time, if you're having troubles logging into the portal, you can always click this forgot password button. That'll take you through a reset process. You can do it completely on your own as long as you can answer your security question. And we do have this create an account button, but at this point, I believe no one in here should need to use this. So we'll skip that for now. When you log into the portal, we do not use usernames, we use email addresses. So you will always use your email address when you log into the portal. And I'm going to go ahead and type in my password here. I hope that's right. There we go. If you enter your username and password, that will take you to the second part of the login process, which is the identification code screen. Now, I am going to talk about this, and the reason I'm going to talk about this is because this by far is what we get the most questions about sent to our support desk. If people run into problems with the DMM portal, they typically run into problems with this part right here. The DMM portal is very easy to use, but you know, there are always things that can come up that can put a kink in things. So we'll talk about this just a little bit before we actually log into the portal. Now, when we set up the portal and we were talking to different servicers, one of the things that they required of us is that we have a two-fold login process. So we put this in place to meet the security requirements of several different servicers. And that's why you see this here, because we get that question a lot. Why do we have to you know, enter an identification code every time we log in? And actually, you do not have to enter an identification code every time you log in. If you're using the same computer and you're not sharing your credentials with anyone else, and you're not in any type of private browsing mode, then once you've logged into the portal one time, as long as you're logging in from the same place with the same ID, and the DMM portal can recognize that you're logging in from the same location, you will not see this identification code screen when you log in a second time. As a matter of fact, if you log in from the same computer and you never use another machine, you can go a pretty long time without ever seeing the identification code screen pop up. So if you're seeing this every single time that you log in, then one of the things you need to check, you need to see if your browser is in private browsing mode. And I'll show you here, like for example, if you go to File and you do this new private window, and I'm using Firefox, by the way, but all of the different browsers, Internet Explorer and Chrome, they both have something similar to this. If you open this private window, which is actually what I'm in now, we can still connect to the portal, but you will get this each time because it's not sending the information that it does when you're not in private browsing mode. So that could be a reason that you see this, if you see this every time that you log in. If you go from machine to machine, computer to computer, or you say use your laptop, or you log in with your phone, each time you log in with a different device, you're going to see this screen. So keep that in mind. If you're not sure, and if you're receiving this every time that you log in and you're not sure why, and you are logging in from the same machine and no one else is using your email address and you're not in private browsing mode, then feel free to contact us at the support desk and we'll see if we can figure out why you're seeing this each time. So once you're here, you have 3 different methods that you can use to send the ID code. The one that's used the most is this email option here that I'll click. If you're going to use the email, you click the button, then you have to select the email address by putting a mark in the radio button here. And the email address is always going to be what's listed in your profile, which is, of course, what you logged in with. So that's where the email will be sent to. Now, this sometimes can take a little while. I've seen it take 30 seconds. I've seen it take several minutes. As a matter of fact, and especially with servicers, you tend to have a little tighter security than, say, just a borrower attorney would. So sometimes it can take a little while to, get through all your firewalls and all of your checks before it reaches your inbox. So the email option, again, is by far the most common way to receive the code. In my opinion, it is not the best way to receive the code. We also have this voice option that we see here. And if you use this voice option, any phone number that you have listed in your profile will be listed here as an option. And you can input up to 3 phone numbers. You can do it's a home phone, business phone, cell phone, but you could enter any phone number you want in any one of those fields. And if it's listed there when you register your account or you enter it later in your profile, it will be here as an option. The thing that you have to keep in mind is that in order for this to work, well, the way it works is as soon as you choose it and click the next button, the DMM portal will automatically call you, and when you pick up the phone, it'll just read the digits off to you. The problem is that, a lot of companies have, what would you call it, like a automated line, a robot that answers the phone. So if you have any type of auto attendant that answers the phone for you, you will not be able to use this option. The only way that you can use the voice option is the number that you choose. When that phone rings, you have to pick that phone up yourself directly. And if that's the case, then you can use this voice option. This typically comes in as soon as you click the button. Now, in my opinion, I said the email was not the best way, in my opinion, to receive the code. I think that the text is the best way to get the code, and I'll show you why in just a second, because let me turn my ringer on here, and as soon as I click this button, you'll see how fast the text comes in. So, and I realize that some people are reluctant to enter their cell phone number as part of their portal profile. especially if your company is not providing you with the cell phone. But I will tell you this, if it makes you feel any better, if you enter your cell phone number into your DMM profile so that you can use it for this, it's the only thing that it will be used for. So we will not call you on that number. We will not give that number to anyone else, and that number is never displayed anywhere to anybody else either. So if you enter your cell phone number as part of your profile, its sole purpose is just simply to have another option to receive the ID code. And I'm going to go ahead and click next, so you'll be able to see how quickly that the text comes in and you get the ID code. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. Oh, maybe. Oh, yes, it did go through. There we go. And see, I already have it. So that literally took just a couple of seconds. And that is a lot faster than even the fastest mail delivery for emails. So I would definitely suggest that you use this. Before I go on to the next part, let me mention a couple other things here. First of all, sometimes when people get to this screen, if they're using the email or whatever option that you're using, if it does not come in right away, people will not wait, and they will either exit this window or they'll request another code. And that's actually why we put this timer at the bottom as a way to try to stop some of the problems before they even happen. Because what people will do is they'll think that their first code is not arriving or is not going to come in, and then they will request a new code. And then the first code that was requested does come in, but by the time they enter it, they'll get a message saying that it's not a valid code because they've requested a new one. And each time you request one, only the most recent one that was requested is going to be valid. So then people get stuck in this loop. The first one doesn't work, so then they have another one sent, and by the time they get that one, then so they're constantly stuck in this loop where they're one code behind themselves or ahead of themselves. I'm not sure how you would word that, but basically, on this screen, you just want to wait patiently for the code to arrive. Very seldom do we have problems with the code delivery, if ever. So you will get the code. Just wait patiently for it, and do not request another one, and you'll avoid that problem. So hopefully I typed this code in correctly, and if you do type the code in the right way and click next, that should log us into the portal. Once you're logged into the portal, you will land on the borrower accounts page. The DMM portal is very simple. There's not a whole lot to it. We try to avoid adding in a bunch of things that confuse people. We try to get straight to the point and give you just the tools that you need. So you have quite a simple toolbar up here. We have borrowers, we have tools, the message center, and the calendar, and that's basically it for our toolbar. We do have the borrower search here, and in the upper right corner, we have our profile menu. But other than that, all the rest of this is the borrower accounts. And you'll see that the borrower accounts are separated into these different tabs. We have new, open, document review complete, incomplete, decision reported, and so on. So these different tabs are just simply as the borrower is processed through the system, and basically you are the one that's doing the processing. So as you process the borrower, then the status will change. And so the tabs here are just whatever the current status is on the borrower account. So when they come in initially, they will always be new. And for those of you who have opened an account before, once you basically say that, yes, you are servicing the loan, then that moves it to open. And we'll see that in just a second when we look at our borrower account page. But before we start talking about that, let's take a look at the profile here in the upper right corner. So under the profile menu, this will be a little bit different depending on Well, first it will depend on whether if you're a servicer or a default attorney. We have both in here because they do go hand in hand. But it will be different depending on which type of user you are. It will also be different depending on whether you're a portal administrator or an authorized user. If you're an authorized user, which is basically where the portal administrator has just set you up with an account, and the majority of the way that the accounts work is exactly the same. There's very little difference between a portal administrator and an authorized user. But if you're an authorized user, you will only have profile and then my profile. Of course, this account for the servicing company that I set up here, I made it up and called it Zen Investment Solutions. But I am the portal administrator for this servicer that we set up here, so I have the full set of options. So basically, you can tell whether you're a portal administrator or an authorized user just simply by looking at profile and seeing if you have the extra options here. Now, the one that everyone will have, regardless of what type of user you are and regardless of whether you're a servicer or a default attorney, you will have the My Profile option here. So I'm going to click that. We'll talk about this just for a second. In the profile menu, it basically just lists all the information that you entered when you registered your account. Most importantly, it has your email address and the phone number. Now, the email address, I realize sometimes will change. You know, there are times where firms or companies merge together or they change the name of their company, and this could result in, all the employees' email addresses changing. If that happens, it's not a big deal. You just simply enter your profile here and delete whatever email address is listed and type in your new one. Same with the phone number. You can enter your profile screen at any time. You can enter a phone number. You can change a phone number. You can change any of this information, actually. You just have to remember that if you make a change in your profile, you have to enter your password here where it says to update your information, you have to enter your current password. You have to enter your password right here in this box and click Save. If you do not do that, when you exit this screen, the changes will be lost. So in order to make a permanent update in our registration databases, you have to enter your password here and click Save if you make a change. So just keep that in mind. Again, the one thing I would recommend is that everyone enter a cell phone number if you want to use that option. There's always times where you may not be able to use the email option, especially if you're working remotely or if there's some sort of issue with your email box. It's always good to have a backup so that you can always get that ID code. If you can't get the ID code, you will not be able to log into the portal. So I would recommend that everyone enter a cell phone number here. And again, if you enter your cell phone, we will not give it out or use it. It'll only be for receiving that ID code. Next. Well, you do have a change password option here. Your password will expire every 180 days. So you'll start to get messages in your mailbox saying that your DMM Portal account is about to expire and you need to change the password. If you start seeing that, you can either follow the directions in the email or the next time that you log in to the portal here, you can enter your profile and just change your password. If you change your password here, as a matter of fact, you can change your password whenever you want. You could change it every week if you like. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can if you like. Anytime you change your password here, it will take that 180-day counter and reset it back to 0. Also, you have a security question and answer that you provided when you registered your account. I don't know why, but sometimes people will not answer these. They will put in a bogus answer. Please do not do that. And the reason for that, if you ever have to contact us for any reason, whether it's about your account, whether it's about one of the borrowers that's been submitted on the system. Basically, any question that you're going to ask us where we have to look up information, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to validate your identity by asking you this security question. So if you want to make things easier on yourself, enter an answer here that you know what it is, so that we can easily validate your identity and then get you the information that you're requesting. Now, we have payment and billing options here. I'm not going to go over this today. There are cases where the servicer does make payments on the portal for the program manager and that sort of thing. But typically, the payment, the billing on the portal is done through the borrower side. The borrower is the one that has to pay for the paperwork package and submitting through the portal. And only portal admins will see this anyway, so I don't really think it's important today to really discuss this. It doesn't really apply that much to the servicers or the default attorneys. So that's it for the profile screen. Pretty simple. Let's take a look at some of these other things here. So one of the questions that we get all the time is about setting up accounts. So if you're a portal admin, what you want to do, and this goes for both servicers and default attorneys, you both can set up authorized users. As a matter of fact, you can set up as many users as you want. There's no limit to the number of users that you can have listed under your firm or company. And the way you do that is you just simply click Profile and you go to Add New User. Now, if you're not a portal admin and you're requesting access, or you're requesting access for somebody else, maybe say somebody new in your department, and you're trying to help them get set up on the portal, even though you will not be able to do this yourself, it is good to know how to do this, so that you can just go to your portal admin and request it. And if your portal admin doesn't know how to do it, since you've taken the webinar, you can kind of guide them in the right direction. So you go to Profile, Add New User, and it's very simple to create a user. You basically just need to enter their name. I'll make one up here. We'll do Richard. I don't know, we'll do one easy, Richard Jones. I may have a Richard Jones in here, but this is just for the sake of instruction, so it doesn't really matter. So you just need to enter their first and last name and their email address. We also have this employee ID section here. Only servicers have this, so if you're a default attorney, when you click Add User, you will only see the first, last name, and email. But a lot of servicers use an internal employee ID. This is an optional field. You do not have to use this here, but let's say that you do have one, you can enter that here. Also, only servicers will see this part as well. Now, if you're a default attorney, you will have a couple of checkboxes for the permissions. Basically, your checkbox will, everyone will have this, because when you create a user, in order to create a user, you do have to check the agreement down here, and this basically just says that as a portal admin, you take responsibility for the accounts that you're creating. Everyone will have this checkbox. If you're a default attorney, you'll have one other additional checkbox where you can just grant portal admin status to the user that you create. And being a portal admin, it basically, what it basically does is the main thing is that it allows you to create users. It allows you to view and edit users. It also allows you to be able to see the credit card information. Outside of those things, though, there's not really that much difference between a portal admin and an authorized user, as I said before. Now, for the servicers, you'll have this extra box here for permissions where initially it'll be set to no access. You can grant portal admin rights to someone, but typically they get one of these two. And the first one that we'll talk about is the authorized user all notifications. What that means, and the portal admin basically gets the same thing as the authorized user all notifications. It just means that any client or any borrower that's been submitted to the servicer or to your servicing company, it doesn't matter who they are, anyone that's submitted, you'll have access to. And you'll also, anytime that a change happens, or basically anytime anything happens on a borrower account, it could be a document being uploaded, somebody leaves a comment, somebody sends a message, the status changes. Anytime anything changes on the borrower account, the DMM portal sends out a notification. It records it in the history, sends out a notification. So if you're set to this, you will get this for every single borrower in the system. All right. Now, if you're an authorized user assigned notifications only, that means that you, in order to get notifications or to view and make changes on an account, you have to be assigned to that borrower. And we'll see how to do that once we get in and look at the borrower information page. But that's basically the two different options that you have. We also have this checkbox out here for new submissions. This means if you're set as an authorized user assigned notifications only and new submissions, it means that every time a new submission is entered into the portal, you will get that notification, but you will not get any more notifications on that borrower account unless you're assigned to that borrower. So again, this is pretty easy and straightforward. Once you've entered the information, you just click Save User. The portal does all the rest of the work. It'll give you a confirmation page here, tells you the user's created, tells you the name and email address. And as soon as you click that Add User button, the DMM portal will automatically generate an email, send it to the user, and once it's been sent to their email box, they have a link in that email that they'll click. They'll go through a short registration process. They'll have to, set up their profile, enter a password, choose a security question. But when they're done with that, as soon as they do that, then they will be able to log in with their email address to the portal. And that's all there is to creating new users. Now, for the users that have been created, the portal admin can also view information about those users. To do that, you go to Profile, All Users. And any user that's been created will be listed here. Now, I have a short list. Most of these really have come one at a time as I've held different webinars. Some servicers have a lot of employees, so they have several pages. If you have a lot of employees, you can use these boxes up here at the top. You can search by any of these fields that you see here. So typically you would search by last name or email address, but you can use the ID, phone number, first name if you know that and choose to. Do not have to use this search up here, but it is available if you have a lot of people on the list. Also, there's this Excel button. If you need this for your records, or for some department may keep track of the different users on different websites. I know a lot of the servicers, they have specific people that keep track of that sort of thing. You can click the Excel button. What that will do is it will take this list that you see here, and it will just simply create that information in an Excel spreadsheet. And well, here, I'll just do it. Click Excel. It'll give you the option to open or save it, of course. I'll go ahead and open it just so you can see what it looks like. But basically, it's just this information placed in an Excel spreadsheet. But again, if you have a lot of users on the system, which there are servicers that have 50, 100 people. So this can come in handy if you want to look at some of the different information, or just, again, simply keep track of what users are using what applications on the internet. The fields are pretty straightforward. It's obvious what most of these are just by reading the column header. You do have a field that shows you when the account was created. This can be important sometimes, depending on the situation. This shows the last time that the user successfully logged into the portal. The last column shows the status. Now, there's not too many different status categories that they'll fall into. Typically, and really what you want everyone to be is active. If they're active, it'll show in green. If they, when I was saying before that you have to change your password every 180 days, you also have to log in every 180 days. If you do not log in every, however many months that is, you will automatically be suspended. And what it will read, it'll be in red, and it'll say inactive time lapse. And I'll show you what to do with that in just a second. The other option that you would see here is unvalidated. And what unvalidated is, if you see here, Richard Jones is the one that I just created. You will see unvalidated if you've created the account and the portal has sent the registration email to that user, but they have not yet clicked the link in their registration email and set up their account. So if they have not done that, they will show up as unvalidated. As soon as they set up their account, they become an active user. Now, you can look at any person that you see here. You can look at their profile page by clicking this number out to it's the very left-hand column. And all this is just an internal ID number. It doesn't typically mean anything, to anyone on the outside. It's just an ID number that we use to identify this person in our database. But each one of these is a link, so you can click it. Let's say that we want to take a look at, let's take a look at Cleopar here. You just click the number. This opens their profile page. It's basically the same as your profile page. As the portal admin, you can make changes to another user's profile. You can also change their permission. And this does happen quite often. A lot of times people will change from an assign notifications only to an all notifications, or this will be added, the new submission. So it will be common for users' permissions to change. Anytime you make a change here, just like in your own profile where you have to enter your password and click save, if you're the portal admin, you make a change, you still have to click this save button that you see down here in the bottom right corner. Once you make the change and click save, that will update the information. If they're an active user, which Cleopar is, you'll see the option to deactivate or to reset their password. So if you're a portal admin and one of your users comes to you and says that they can't log in, you can always click this reset password link and send them an email to reset their password. For any user that's active, this will say deactivate. I'll go ahead and click it just to show you what happens. Now we've deactivated it. You'll see that it shows up in red. And if we look down at the bottom, now we have different options, namely the activate button. Any user that's been deactivated or marked as inactive, or they haven't logged in for that 108-day period and they've been suspended, you'll have to come in here and activate them again. By clicking the activate button, it'll prompt you whether you want to send them a password reset or not. Typically, if you're activating a user, you need to send them a password reset. So you would usually click yes here. I'm going to just click no, but typically you would want to send them a password reset. So that's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. One other thing I will show you, this does come up quite often, and it's important to know, especially if you're a portal admin. On the All Users menu, you'll see that some of the emails are gray and some of them are red. Now, the reason I have so many red emails here is because most of the time I just make these emails and names up on the spot, when I'm live in a seminar. So they're not real email addresses. But the reason that they're red is because the portal has attempted to send an email to this email address, and it either bounced or was returned. So if this email, if the portal cannot successfully send an email to this person, it's going to show up as red. Now, if you see an email address listed as red, the first thing that you want to do is, one, look to see if the email address is misspelled. That happens quite often. When you're typing it in, you misspell it, or maybe their last name was written wrong somewhere and you typed it in wrong and that's not their actual email address. So that's the first thing you want to check. See if it's misspelled. If it's not misspelled, the next thing you want to do is go to your IT department and see if there's an issue with their email box. And especially for brand new employees, sometimes, the IT department is just setting up their email box, so, it may not be running perfectly yet. So if, it sends out an email and comes back, it's going to show up as red here. Now, when this happens, once the email address shows as red in the All Users menu, the portal will stop sending emails to that address. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that they can receive emails before you do a reset on them. And that is it for the authorized user menu. And again, for the people in here that are default attorneys, this is almost exactly the same, if not identical. Really, the only difference is that permissions window. So everything I've talked about here, you will be able to do as a default attorney as well. Now let's talk about default attorneys. So there is a process that you have to go through in order to use a default attorney on the portal. And really, it's easy. There's just a couple of steps that you have to go through. First, you have to add the default attorney to your company profile to say, this is a company that, or this is a firm that can represent us. After you've added them to your profile, which I'll show you in just a second, then any case that comes into the portal, you can assign to that default attorney. So when you have a new default attorney, or you have to do this initially for any attorney that's going to represent you as a servicer, or represent you, the servicer, if we go to Profile, Default Attorneys, this is always going to be the first step. So Profile, Default Attorneys, and I'm going to get rid of the one that we have here. When you first enter your default attorney menu, it's going to be blank, just like this. Okay? We have this button that says Add Default Attorney. If we click that button, you'll get the Add Default Attorney window that pops up. Now, they are divided up by state. So, and this is important for the default attorneys, when you set up your account, if you practice law in different states, make sure that you add them there. So really, any state that you're authorized to practice law in, so I guess any state that you have a bar number for, enter that into your profile. Because if you do not, if you don't list that state as somewhere where you can practice law, you will not show up in this menu, because when they select the state here, it's going to match that up with your profile. So let's say, for example, Florida. I think that's the one I have my example one set up in. So I'm going to select Florida. When you select this, it's going to take all the default attorneys that are live on the system, and it's going to display a list here. And the way that it lists it, it's going to have the name. Well, first, it's going to list the name of the firm. Then it will list the main account holder at the firm, which is typically the portal admin there. And then it will list the portal admin's email address. So that's how it's going to break this list up. There are a lot of them in here, as you can see. So typically, you want to do a search after you've entered the state. So I'm going to type in, this is another one. This is a default attorney that I, again, registered for the sake of instruction. So we have the Zen Law Center in Florida. Once you find the law firm that you're looking for, you simply click it on the list. Once you click it, it's going to list the different states that they can practice law in. Now, this one is only set up to practice law in Florida, so we only have this one box here. But several default attorneys, and well, actually, some default attorneys can practice everywhere in the country. So if your firm is set up to practice law in different states, each state that you've entered into your profile will be listed here. So you'll set permissions separately for each state. Now, these different permissions, what these do, okay, typically people will get standard access, no processing. That means that they can see the borrower record, they can view the documents, they can send messages, but they can't actually change the status or process the borrower through the loss mit cycle, I guess you would call it. through the loss mit process. That's the only difference. If you select process all accounts, then this grants the default attorney all the functionality that you have as the servicer. It essentially makes them the servicer, because then they can report the decisions, they can accept or reject the accounts, they have all the functionality that you have as the servicer. Same with this one. This just means that they can process anything that's marked as a mediation account. And then, of course, there's the none button. Why would you select none? Well, if the attorney is practicing in multiple states, again, right now, this only shows Florida, but let's say that the Zen Law Center and Megan Johnson here is able to practice law in both Florida and Louisiana, but the servicer is only going to assign Florida cases to the Zen Law Center. What you can do is you can set Florida to be standard access, no processing, and then you would scroll down and you would have the same set of permissions for Louisiana, and you could set that state to be none. That way, they're not even going to come up on the list for cases that are outside of Florida. Once you have the permission set, you can click the Save button. That will add it to the default attorney window. Now, at any time you want to change permissions, you just go to Profile, Default Attorneys. That'll take you back to this screen. You can click the name of the firm, and that will reopen this window. And, of course, you have the Remove button if you want to delete them. You can add as many default attorneys to your company profile as you want. You can have 1,000 attorneys representing you all over the country if you choose to do that. You just click the Add Default Attorney button and add each one in. So this has to be done in order to connect the case to your default attorney. Now that brings us to the actual borrower account. So let's go to that. And that actually is the heart of the system. So I'm going to click Borrowers here on the toolbar. And if you notice, the Borrowers button actually has the home key, because this, even though it says Borrowers, this is the home page when you're logged in. So that's why it's showing the house here. So on the borrower accounts page, let's take a look at a new account. This is one, we've got Stanton Friedman. This is one that I just did a couple days ago when I was doing our borrower attorney seminar. You'll see that it always lists the loan number on the borrower accounts page. It also lists the days since submission to give you an idea of how old the account is. Now, you do not want accounts to sit around, and typically the loss mit order requires you to act within a certain amount of days. So keep that in mind. You can see this case was just submitted 2 days ago. It also lists the bankruptcy case number. And by the way, if you ever need to search for a borrower, you can use this borrower search here. You can search by the borrower's name, by the loan number, by the bankruptcy case number. You can search by a lot of different fields. So just keep that in mind, because it's not really a good idea to try to find a borrower by tabbing through here. And the reason for that is because the status is going to change constantly. You know, the DMM portal is built so that a borrower can submit their paperwork to the servicer, and then they can work with the servicer to come to a resolution. But that process, tends to be done very quickly, or should be done very quickly. That's kind of the point of the whole thing. So the status will constantly change. It's much easier to find an account by going to the borrower search than it is to tab through here and find which one you're looking for. Now, if you click the name of any borrower, this will open their individual borrower information page. So this entire page now that we see here loaded is all specifically for this one borrower account. Now, the most important thing here is going to be this timeline that you see at the top. And this is a really good tool, because anytime that you're not sure what's going to happen next, what needs to happen next, where you are in the process, or even whose turn it is to act, you can always look at the timeline on a borrower's page and see exactly what's been done and then what's supposed to happen next. So you can see this first step here was submit application by the borrower. The process is always started on the borrower side. They get their paperwork package together, they submit that package to you, and then once you have it, you'll see that the second step is to acknowledge receipt, and this is done by the servicer. Now, it's marked as pending right now, but basically all this step is if you are servicing the loan, if it's your, I guess you would call it client or your borrower, and you service the loan, you're going to click accept. Sometimes you will get applications maybe that where you're not servicing the loan, or it's also possible that someone else has bought the loan, or it's been sent to another servicing company. If that's the case, you just click the reject button. But if you're servicing the loan, you just simply click accept, and I'll go ahead and do that. As soon as you accept it, this will prompt you to select your default attorney. So for the default attorneys that are in here, you will never ever have a file in your portal that's in status new, because the file has to be opened by the servicer before you can be assigned to it. So when you open the file, and just by clicking accept, that or saying that you service the loan by clicking accept, that in turn opens the file automatically. So once you do that, you will see this window. You'll see the select default attorney here. Now, you'll notice in the drop down that I only have one default attorney to select from, and that's because I've only added one default attorney to my profile menu. Now, when you go to profile, add default attorney, that's a one-time only. Once they've been added to the portal on that menu, you never have to go back and touch that again. You never have to add them again. That step only needs to happen once. This step, when you assign a borrower, has to be done for every single borrower. So any account that's submitted to the servicer has to be assigned to the attorney. But however many attorneys that you have on the list, as long as they're set up for that state, like this particular one is obviously in Florida because that's where the Zen Law Center practices, or where I set it up to practice. That's why it's in this list. As soon as you select it, once we click Save Information, it's at that point that this borrower account will show up in the default attorney's portal. And we get a lot of questions on that too, both from servicers and default attorneys. They're unsure how to link it, or they think they should be able to see an account, but they cannot. So if that's the case, it probably has something to do with this. But before I click Save Information, I also want to talk about assigning users. So you'll notice that this is a list of all the authorized users here. Now, some of these automatically have checkboxes and cannot be removed. That means that their permission level is set to an all access user or an all notifications user, and there's no reason to have to assign them because they automatically are able to see and get notifications for every borrower that's entered onto the system. Notice though, these other two, Walter Jones and Cleo Parr, these are set to authorized users assigned notifications only. So they will not receive notifications on the borrower unless they're assigned to the borrower specifically. And all you have to do is just put a check mark next to the users that you want to assign to a case. And as soon as you do that, it'll show up in their portal and they'll realize that they're assigned to it. And that's it for the first window that we see here. You do have a couple of other tabs. I'm not going to click them now, but basically, if the different users that have been assigned have changed, or you've sent it from one default firm to another, it will record that history here. It'll also show, the date and time when those users were assigned to the case. You can see that by clicking these. Once you click Save Information, that will take you to this contact form. Whoever the main point of contact is at the servicer, at the servicing company, is who you enter here. I'll just enter test for now, but typically this is just the main point of contact there. Once you've entered the main point of contact, you click Save Information, and that's it. It will, again, change the status from new to open. If you look here now, you'll see it says status open, and now we're on the third step of the timeline. If you follow this timeline, you'll be able to easily basically complete any borrower application that's been submitted. So the next step is also done by the servicer, and that's to determine the completeness of the file. We try to keep borrowers from submitting their case unless they've already completed all the required paperwork. And before you can even become an active user on the portal, we require that the servicers provide us with their standard paperwork package. So you don't have to worry about that either. As soon as they select your servicing company off the list of servicers, we automatically pull the paperwork package that you've given to us, and we give that to the borrower. So that makes things much easier. It also ensures that once you receive an application, all the documents that you need are already going to be included. Now, in order to do this step, though, you have to look at the documents. So let's come back to this step, and I'll show you real quickly. I know we're kind of running out of time here, what the different parts of the borrower information page are. So we have borrower info, history, documents, court program, and comments. The borrower info page just simply lists this basic information about the borrower. If you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see the history section. The history section records any change that happens on a borrower account. So you can see what's happened to this account already. And there are several in here, I guess, because I've used this before for instruction. But you can see that the first thing that happened is the file was submitted. And if you click open, you can see, the details of that message. So this file was submitted. It's date time stamped. It also gives you a link to all the different documents that were initially submitted. It also shows you who submitted it. And down at the bottom, you have this view details button. If you click that will show you all of the different people at each different party, or for the different parties involved that received a copy of the message. So you can see that the mediator and servicer both received a copy of the message when the borrower submitted the case. So you can see that anytime a message is sent, we have file submitted, a message sent, there was another document uploaded, there was a change made to the account, and then of course today you see where I open the file. So anytime anything changes, it'll get a history stamp here, and it'll show you exactly what happened. Now, also as part of the history, you can click this new message button. It's just like sending an email. You have your recipients at the top. You can click, say, borrower mediator or just one or the other. Type in your message. Again, it's just exactly like sending an email. You can even do an attachment like you can in an email. Let me go to my DMM folder here. And I'll just upload our test document. But you can, apply as many attachments as you like. Once you click submit message, you don't have to worry about anybody's email address. You don't have to worry about, you really don't have to worry about who it's going to. It'll automatically take the borrower and the mediator if you selected that, if there is a mediator on the case, and it'll automatically send a message to everyone in that party. So you do not have to worry about knowing any of that. Just know that if you send a message, everybody that's involved will get a copy of that message. They'll get a copy, actually, they'll get a notification in their inbox saying that they have a new message, and then they can log in the portal and look at it. And you can see, here's the one that I just sent. Moving along. Third section is the borrower documents. This is all the documents that the borrower has uploaded. You can click this download button. You can download one or more of them all at the same time if you like. But this basically is the entire package. You can click any one of these documents to open it. But what you're really doing on this step is you're making sure that all the documents are here. And then you can determine on the timeline whether it's complete or incomplete. If it's incomplete, you click this button and you can simply select which documents are missing. That will change the status to incomplete, but then it will go and send a message back to the borrower saying it's been marked as incomplete. You need to provide this document. So it gives them, well, basically, it gives both of you an easy way for you to say, here's what documents you need, and then it also gives the borrower, after it's been marked incomplete, an easy way to submit the documents that you need. If it is complete, which hopefully it will be, again, we do take some precautions on the borrower side to make sure that they upload a complete package. You can go ahead and click the complete button. You can enter details here if you choose to. Again, we'll just type the word test. This moves us on to the final part, which is reporting the decision. And based on the information that's here, you can approve or deny it. You know, each servicing company goes about this process a little different. You should know how you go about making this decision. Before I go here, though, let's talk about these last two. We talked about history, borrower documents. If we scroll down, we'll get to the court program. This will list the loss mitigation order. This is a requirement to upload on the portal. Cannot be submitted without this. This will also list some different information here. If there's a mediator, it'll list that. And say, for example, this final loss mitigation report, this is actually done by the mediator. Right now it shows as not reported, but if the mediator has completed this, it'll give you a link, just like you see here with the loss mitigation order, where you can click and take a look at the report. Now, depending on the state, depending on the state, some states have just a final loss mit report. Some have different reports that are required by different courts in different states. But basically, whatever state it's filed in, it'll list all the required reports here, and if they've been completed, it'll give you a link to be able to open that and read it. Last part is just simply the comments. You can see I entered a comment, hello world, here, but if you want to leave a comment, this will actually leave it at the bottom of the page. But more importantly, if you leave a comment here, if I now scroll up to my history or message center, they're basically the same thing. You can see there was an account change here done by us, the servicer, and if we open it, we can see that a comment was left. This is what we just did here. So that's a quick way to leave us, a quick message if you do not want to generate an entire new message. Typically, though, you do want to use the new message button. And that's the entire page, really. That's all the information that's there. So once you get to the end, you're going to either report or deny it. Depending on which button you click, we'll go ahead and click approve. You can upload an approval letter. You can type in the details of the approval. Once you click Save Information, again, this information will be relayed to the different parties, and all that's left to do is to close the file. Now, this can be closed by either you or the borrower, but we do ask that people, when you're done, that you do close the files if you can. Or, you may want to tell the borrower to, you can send them a message and say, review what's here. When you're done, go ahead and close it. You do not want to have pending files around. You do want to close them at the end, so that's important. Also, sometimes, the same loan will be submitted a couple of times for review, especially if the borrower's situation changes. They will not be able to resubmit if they have a file that's in any status but closed. So do close the files if possible, or like I said, have the borrower do it. Once you click this, though, you'll select what happened. Let's say in this case the loan was modified. You can put the details of the modification here. Once you click Save Information, this borrower is completed and this case is closed. So you can see it's a very simple process. I mean, everything is listed right here in the timeline. Again, anytime if you do not know what you're supposed to be doing, just click the borrower's name to open this info page and look at the timeline. It'll always tell you exactly what you need to do. The only other thing that I would point out, well, there are a couple things I want to show you before we go here. These review options that you see here, most of these buttons, like the download documents, the send message, update comments, update LMP info, view edit assignments, all these are buttons that you'll find on the page here. Like, for example, this view edit assignments. Here, let me exit out of here and go to one that's not closed because I'll continue to get that warning. Let's open Bob Lazar. So if you click View Edit Assignments, you'll see that it brings up this window. Now this window will automatically pop up when you initially open the account. But let's say that the account has already been opened and the default attorney changes, or you need to change firms for some reason. You can click the View Edit Assignments button. You can change the default attorney here. Probably more likely to happen to use the View Edit Assignments button is you're going to have internal changes for people that are assigned to the case. So again, we see these two people. You can assign or unassign any user that's listed in your system by clicking View Edit Assignments under Review Options on the left-hand side. So again, you see that most of these options are also located somewhere on the page. There are a few that are not. You have the ability to edit the loan number. Now, the borrower side, once they've submitted the case to you, they cannot change the loan number at that point. They can change it all the way up to the point where they submit it. Once it's been submitted to you and you can see it, we no longer allow them to change the loan number. So if the loan number needs to be changed, you will have to do it. And sometimes, you'll get a message from the borrower or the borrower's attorney that says that the loan number is wrong or it needs to be updated. Can you please change it? And we'll tell them to contact the servicer if the loan number needs to be changed. So that's how you do that here. Let's say that the borrower account is sold off to another servicer. You can do a servicer transfer here as well. Those are really the two main things that we didn't talk about that are not listed in the main page here. So that's pretty much all there is to the borrower information page. Again, you can click any one of these shortcuts to take you to that section. You have your timeline at the top. Also, one thing I would point out to you, on the toolbar, we also have the ability to run reports. They're pretty self-explanatory. We have new submissions, follow-up support, spot report. Like say you do a new submissions, you choose between two dates, and it will show you all the submissions between those two dates. Follow-up report, you can select the different status here, and see the latest activity on all these accounts that are in these, whatever status that you click, or a combination of them. Also under tools, we have training videos. I would recommend that you use this if necessary, or if you're not sure what you're doing, you can always come here and look. This servicer portal training is just a copy of the seminar that we did today. It's actually a very old one, but I'll probably be posting a new one soon. So if you want to rewatch this webinar, you can do that here. If you want to just go over how to do the assigning the default attorney and everything that we talked about with that, you can watch this video. You'll see that the webinar is long. It's 45 minutes, but these other ones are just 5 minutes long or so. This one talks about messaging, and we didn't talk about this today, but you do have the ability to add labels to the borrower accounts. So if that's something that you're interested in, or you have a little extra time, watch this 5-minute video on the labels, and they can come in very handy depending on how you use them. So take advantage of these training videos. We will be posting additional videos as time goes on. But right now we just have these 4, but there will be more here soon. And that's it. So if you have any questions, 2 ways we can go about it here. You can either click the raise hand button, and I will take you off mute so that you can ask your question to the group. If you're shy, though, we do have over 50 people in here right now, so just know that if you do it that way, you will be addressing the entire group. You can also type a question in, and I'll be happy to answer it. So I will give you a couple minutes here to ask a question if you have one, and we'll go from there. And at any time, too, you can always call or contact our support desk. We monitor the emails at the support desk all the time. So if you send a message to our support desk, we typically get back to you pretty quickly. And anyone who has contacted us already knows that we get back with an answer as quickly as possible. But you're also welcome to call the support desk. If you scroll to the bottom of any page in the portal, you'll see this gray footer here. That lists our 800 number, and it has this click here link to send us an email. But our support email is just support@defaultmitigation.com. And you can send any question, any comment, any concern, any suggestion maybe that you have. You're welcome to send any of that to the support desk, and you're welcome to call us with all of that as well.